Does USC football have new life with Jaden Mayava? The Trojans may actually have benefited from a decommitment, and women's soccer is off to play my hometown team of St. Louis University. All of that and more coming right up. It's the Water Cooler. Where else would you rather be? Good morning and welcome to the Water Cooler, your home for USC Sports Banter. I'm your host, Thomas Johnson, joined alongside MJ Newsom and Stefano Fenderich at the desk. There's so much USC athletics chatter to get to, so let's hop right into it with Water Cooler talk. The Trojans might finally have their guy at the quarterback position. Jaden Mayava stole the show this past weekend against Nebraska, accounting for all of USC's 4 offensive touchdowns in the Trojans' 28-20 win over the Cornhuskers. The UNLV transfer did commit 2 costly turnovers, a pick 6, and a fumble deep in USC's own territory. But overall, guys, how would you rate his performance?
I mean, I'll be honest, gentlemen. I think we got a certified Polynesian playmaker on our hands.
Certified Polynesian playmaker?
This man
okay.
balled out, and I was really excited to see it. And you mentioned the pick 6, and what really was the promising thing to me is he came back from that pick 6 and then led a touchdown drive. And, didn't let it deter him. It was a very redshirt sophomore mistake of him. It was an awfully thrown ball, but then he looked great the rest of the game. He had a quarterback rating of 156.2, accounted for all 4 touchdowns. And, he had the fumble late game, but to me, these games really don't matter for USC in the scheme of things. Yes, they're trying to make a bowl game, but this is a tryout for Mayava, and he's looking great so far. He has 2 other games, maybe a third, if they win out and get to the bowl, or just 1 more even. So this is a tryout for him, and I think he showed a lot of great strides. I'm excited to see what he's going to do the rest of the season, but I mean, look at him. He was so dynamic, and he's just going to be more comfortable in the offense. We're used to seeing a guy like Miller Moss who had 4 years, to look at this USC offense, learn it, and be a pro at it, be an expert in it. And now Mayava is balling out, and he's been here for just a few games. So I'm excited to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, Stefano, I like what you said about it being a tryout. You're really right. I mean, USC, they're still playing for a bowl game, but that's not the standard at USC. I mean, you don't want to go 6-6. Like, this is a powerhouse program with 11 national championships. But I like how you said, even though you're not playing for anything bigger, at least for the team, Mayava's playing for a job next year, and I think he earned that on Saturday. I mean, I would give his performance at a 10, a 7. I think you mentioned the costly turnovers, both Steph and Thomas. That first pick 6 to, of course, Sierra Wright, that was to no man's land. I mean, he threw that in between 2 guys. I was like, oh, buddy, what are we doing here? Well, but you're right. He bounced back extremely well, ended up having 250 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, had 1 rushing. And the one thing he did that is different from what we've seen all season long is when the game was on the line.
Yes.
He led a long, lengthy touchdown drive to basically put the game on ice. And that's something Miller Moss has not done this season outside of LSU. And that was my biggest critique. When we talked about was the right move to move away from him to go to Mayava. Maybe it was.
Well, Lincoln Riley talked this week that he really likes aggressive quarterbacks, and he would rather take somebody who's too aggressive and pare that down rather than take someone who's not aggressive enough and put that up. So I think that's what's special about Mayava is he has that aggressiveness to him, and he's a mobile quarterback, kind of Caleb Williams-esque. I don't want to put him in that echelon yet, but you kind of already alluded to it. Does USC win that football game if Miller Moss is the quarterback?
I mean, what it's shown us this season, no. I mean, in all of USC's close game losses, they had a chance to win the game or tie the game with, time dwindling down on the clock, and he hasn't been able to produce. I think 3 of the times he turned it over on downs, the other 2 he threw a pick. So, Mayava did what Moss couldn't do all year, except against UCLA, or LSU, pardon me. But he did what Miller Moss couldn't do, and it was refreshing to see, honestly.
I'm actually going to play devil's advocate to you. I think
Really?
USC does win this game with Miller Moss at quarterback, and it's so easy to sit here and praise Jaden Maiava for how well he played. Miller Moss has played well this season. I don't want to discredit that. And I will say, I was the one to criticize him and say when the game's on the line, he hasn't been the guy to deliver, and it's true. But outside of that, if you fix those sort of the ice in the veins issue, Miller Moss has been a good quarterback, and I don't think Nebraska's defense was good enough to beat USC with Miller Moss at the helm. But going back to what you said about Jaden Maiava's abilities, he's more of a scrambler. That's what Lincoln Riley's offense fits around. I think Jaden Maiava is very similar to Jalen Hurts when he was at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I agree.
You mentioned Caleb. It's a little bit different. I think Hurts, it's the stature, the build, not exactly the craziest wheels, but I think they're very comparable.
The arm.
I just think about that one rushing touchdown Maiava had against Utah State.
Yeah.
I was sitting up there in the press box and like, Caleb Williams is back?
It was dynamic for sure.
It was great. But so USC playing UCLA in the Rose Bowl this weekend, crosstown showdown. Rivalry games are huge for the Trojans and for any college football program. If Lincoln Riley loses this game, is it over for him?
I don't think it's out of the question. I mean, I know we were talking about this morning, and I think that you're still looking at a really fat buyout. I mean, there's a lot of money to pay Lincoln Riley. I have said that I think Lincoln Riley, you have to give him 4 years. I think coming from a different place in Oklahoma with a different recruiting pipeline, I know we'll get to recruiting in a second, you have to get your feet wet. You got to figure out what California is like. It's a different animal out on the West Coast. And I think we have seen in year one what Lincoln Riley and USC can be at its peak. And it has to find a way to get back there. But I do think if you lose this game, there is a lot of talk because of how bad you've been the last couple of years. I don't think the trigger is pulled, but it is definitely a discussion. But you got to believe with Danton Lynn as the DC now, you got to believe he's got a good chance to beat UCLA.
Yeah, I think USC does have to win this one. UCLA, not a great team, but we'll just have to see at the Rose Bowl. Are you guys going?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good. That'll be fun. But not only does USC seem to have its quarterback of the near future, but the long term as well. Even though longtime Trojan commit Julian Lewis reneged on his verbal pledge this past weekend, five-star quarterback Hassan Longstreet flipped his commitment from Texas A&M to USC just minutes later. Now Longstreet is actually the higher-rated recruit. Could Lewis's decommitment have actually been a blessing in disguise for USC?
I mean, you said it best. It really was a blessing in disguise. I mean, Longstreet, I think, was the better recruit the entire time. But to go, touching on what we just talked about with Jaden Maiava, Longstreet is the better quarterback for Lincoln Riley. Looking at just their stats in high school, Longstreet has carried the ball for 140 times for nearly 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. Lewis, 3.4 yards per carry on 65 tries. Longstreet is the better quarterback for Lincoln Riley. He fits the system. He's that dynamic rusher. And to be honest, Lewis, he doesn't want to be here. USC doesn't need him. But, I was happy to see that you were able to also just get a commit from California. That was really refreshing to see, which has only gone down for USC in the past few years. So it was refreshing to see to get Longstreet for Lincoln Riley. And I think it's the best thing for him in the USC program overall.
I think you nailed that right on the head, Steph. I don't think that Lewis ever wanted to be here.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. He committed here because it was Lincoln Riley. It's the flashy name. It's the quarterback guy. But he's still visiting Colorado, Georgia, Indiana, all these different places. Yeah,
Auburn.
He went to Auburn.
That's a little
Deuce Knight flipped there.
disrespectful.
He's not going to go there. But it's like you're keeping your recruitment wide open. I get it. You got to commit and keep that spot. But if you're committed, you got to be committed. And I really think it just shows that he might have been sort of a cancer down the road. And I also think that it's easy to project, but the guys who reclassify have not had a whole lot of success, at least initially, and a lot of time it ends up being busts because they're too ready to get to the next level. Take your time a little bit, play your high school ball, because Julian Lewis should be a 26 guy instead of a 25 guy. And I wonder if that's going to hurt him down the road. I do think he's probably the guy at Colorado next year with Shedeur Sanders passing along the keys for the commitment post. But we'll see what it has to be. And I do think that USC won this by, you said, getting a better player and likely someone who's not really cancerous if we've seen a Juju Lewis.
Well, Juju Lewis from Carrollton, Georgia, all the way across the country. We talked about it a little bit last week. USC really trying to recruit from the South. Hassan Longstreet, less than 10 miles away. So the fact that he's from California, how do you think this might change recruiting in the future for USC?
I mean, Lincoln has tried it seems, the past few recruiting class to try and go to the South, try and extend the USC reach, but he's straight up getting out-muscled. I mean, I think he got, maybe 6 or 7, I forget the exact number, of total recruits in the South his past 4 years here. So he just needs to get, focus on California, strengthen that connection, because these kids want to come here. They want to go to USC. It's like one of the premier college football schools on the West Coast, honestly. So I think he just needs to focus his mind on the Mater Deis, the St. John Boscos, and really strengthen that recruiting pipeline more.
When I'm playing EA college football back at home, and I'm working on my dynasty, California's got one of the best recruiting pipelines. Not for me as my head coach at Florida State, but you got to believe when you're Lincoln Riley, you got to use the resources at your fingertips. And that was one of the biggest concerns I had when Lincoln got the USC job. He's a Texas guy, grew up in Texas, went to coach at Oklahoma. He's been in the South his entire career. And like I said earlier, California is just a bit of a different animal, and you've got to learn how to balance that. There's going to be a lot of different things, different recruiting type, but it kind of should be easier in a sense. I mean, you have Mater Dei, Bosco, Servite, Oaks Christian, all these really big powerhouses hanging out right here by you. You got to go win those guys. Those guys are going to Oregon. Those guys are going to the Big Ten, the SEC. They need to want to come play, as you said, for the hometown team at USC. That's what it was like when Pete Carroll was here, and it needs to get back to that for USC to take off again.
Well, I compare it kind of like a prom date, because
Okay.
Here we
USC.
go.
Tell me more.
Yeah, USC originally asked Juju Lewis to prom, and Juju Lewis said yes, but no, he was keeping his option open. If something better came along, he would have said yes. Hassan Lantry also found his own prom date in Texas A&M, but he would really want to go to prom with USC.
He's our boy next door.
Yeah, he's the boy next door. And so Juju Lewis decommits, finds his better option. Oh, Hassan Longstreet's waiting for that phone call. He gets that phone call, he's going to prom with USC. And so I think it just goes to show the SoCal recruits want to stay in SoCal. I think Lincoln Riley needs to do a better job of recruiting in California. But it is rivalry week. Oh, I cannot pronounce that word. And I have to admit, the one thing UCLA has over USC is the fact it has a gymnastics team. But do not fret, the Trojans have their own club gymnastics team. Our water cooler crew has all of the info for you.
3, 2, 1.
USC, fight on!
Gymnastics. To some of us it's a sport, others it's a lifestyle, and still others it's a thing we watch every 4 years without fail. Regardless of what gymnastics means for you, there's a spot here at USC Club Gymnastics. So bars is the only event where you really need equipment. A lot of gymnasts choose to use equipment on other events, but for bars, grips are pretty much necessary. Without grips, most of us are absolutely useless. Grips are on. We're gonna head to the bars.
So USC Club Gymnastics functions like any other club sport. We compete against other schools. Our season is in the spring. We get to travel a little bit for that. It's a lot of fun, and this is really a space for anyone at any level to just have fun and learn and grow. Back to you guys at the desk.
Well, from the vault to the pitch, USC women's sports are dominating every field. My name is Hayes Flanagan, and I'm joined by Dylan Luden and Jack Hallinan right at Great Park here in beautiful Irvine. The USC women's soccer team keeps dancing in the NCAA tournament. Now on to the second round. The women of Troy will face the St. Louis Billikens at Great Park, where we are right now in Irvine. Jack and Dylan, what are you guys looking for today for the Trojans in order for them to get a win?
I think the Trojans need to come out and score early. I mean, they're a great late-game team like they have been in the past so far this season, but against Sacramento State, they got a penalty in the third minute, and that proved dividend. I mean, they just went on and kept scoring goals. It gave them confidence early on, and I think they need to do the same thing here against St. Louis.
I completely agree. This team has played more nervy late games than I think they probably wanted to this season against Ohio State, Penn State, even the UCLA game could have gone a little bit more easily for them. And if you're able to score early and get some of your starters off the pitch even earlier, that's going to make all the difference this weekend because you have to turn around and play on Sunday, assuming you win.
Yeah, and can you guys just talk about St. Louis's team? What is the Trojans' biggest challenge right now?
Well, look, they got to stop their offense because that's a great offense. Emily Gaby is their all-time leading scorer. She has 16 goals this year and leads the team in points. She is their most dangerous offensive player, and she scored in their 1-0 win against Kansas. So stopping her is going to be the key for the USC Trojans. And both of them, by the way, USC and St. Louis, are the only one-loss teams remaining in this tournament.
Yeah, and you also have to create enough chances. I mean, this St. Louis team, yes, they play in the Atlantic 10, not quite as difficult of a conference, but they only conceded 1 goal in the Atlantic 10 tournament, and they kept a clean sheet against Kansas in round 1. So you have to have a balanced performance between attack and defense, and shut down Gaby, yes, but also be aggressive and push forward.
Yeah, exactly. The Atlantic 10 is a very different conference than the Big 10. But if the Trojans do win today, they face off against the winner of Virginia versus Wisconsin, which is going on right before the USC St. Louis game. So what do you guys need to see from the Trojans today to be confident in their run and future in this tournament?
I think they just need to keep playing how they've been playing this whole season. I mean, they've been playing with confidence the whole season. That explains why they won the Big Ten regular season. And I know they lost in the tournament, but so what? It was a little bit fluky. They lost some penalties. I mean, who cares at this point? They're now in the NCAA tournament. I think just keep playing with confidence like they have been. They love to keep possession along their back lines, played out to their wings. So I think that's kind of the formula for success.
And you got to make sure your X factors stay hot. I mean, Sampaio had a free kick goal in the first game. Make sure she's still getting on the ball, getting the touches required. Alagoa as well with an awesome backheel finish against Sacramento State. As long as your main contributors stay focused, eyes on the prize, I think you're going to do well in this tournament.
And guess who provided that goal to Maria Alagoa? That was Miley Hayes,
exactly.
A striker who provided the assist. So as well, just make sure everyone in the attack is getting the ball and providing some value.
Yeah, and with a dominant performance against Sacramento State, USC is looking pretty offensively minded right now. So I think everyone hopes that they can come up with this big win against St. Louis and, face a Wisconsin or Virginia team that they are pretty confident that they can beat.
You've already beaten Wisconsin 3-0 this season.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. Should be a good weekend for soccer, and tune in to ESPN to hear our very own Dylan Luden calling the game. We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we talk the most impactful injuries in the NBA, controversy surrounding inside the NBA, and one of the NBA's biggest stars getting off social media.
Welcome back to the Water Cooler. I am now joined on the desk by everyone's favorite duo of Sebastian Bustamante and Kyle Frankel. We get to the second part of our show with awards talk. The Heisman race still has no clear leader, and we are mere weeks away from conference championship games. So who is your Heisman at this point in the season?
Yeah, I came prepared today with some stats.
Ooh,
and,
really?
I know he's going to talk about Travis Hunter. So Travis Hunter is only top 10 in one major stat category between his two positions, wide receivers and D-backs. That's receiving touchdowns. And of every player with 9+ receiving touchdowns, he's got the lowest average yards. So he's doing tremendous things. But, let's be honest, Ashton Genty from Boise State is first in the country in rush yards, all-purpose yards, rush touchdowns, total points. He's averaging 7.4 yards per carry. Bunch of other stats I could rattle off, but the main point is this guy is a stud. He's doing things we haven't seen in 20 years, things we haven't seen since Barry Sanders.
20 years.
He's carrying a group of 5 team to the playoff.
Against Nevada.
Yeah, he's carrying a group of 5 team to the playoff. He carries a group of 5 team to a bye in the college football playoff. He should be the Heisman.
Who have they played? Other than Oregon? Who have they played?
They lost by like 3 to Oregon. Oregon's going to get a bye.
I don't know.
That was a competitive game.
It's a group of 5
because of Ashton Genty.
Yeah, but
you take him off that team, they get killed.
Okay, yeah, you're right there, but it's just like they lost the game. They're playing against a bunch of other group of 5 teams. Sure, he has crazy stats, but I don't know. Like I think you have to do it against the best teams to be considered for the best player award.
Talk to me when he.
I'm glad Thomas took the words
Let's
out
wait
of
till
my
he wins
mouth.
the national championship.
So I'm just going to go with the obvious pick. I'm just going to go with Travis Hunter. I'm going to go with my guy. I'm going with the Buffs, who he's led to an 8-2 season. Dramatically improved the record from last season. I mean, guy's balling. Against Texas Tech, 9 receptions, 100 yards, tutty. Against Cincinnati, 155 yards. Sorry, I had to just take a second there. 155 yards, 2 tutties.
Oh, wow.
And, I mean, let's talk about the coach. Deion Sanders is like, Travis is by far the best player in college football. Number 1 pick offensively, number 1 pick defensively.
You're quoting his coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm quoting Deion.
I'm sure
Why
Ashton
not?
Genty's coach likes him too. I mean, what,
Well, I'm gonna talk about a player whose coach certainly likes him, and that is Cameron Ward of the University of Miami. Because at the end of the day, the Heisman is still a quarterback award, and the stats pop off the page for Cam Ward. 32 touchdowns, that's first. Over 3,400 passing yards, that's first. And he's leading the best scoring offense in the FBS with 45 points per game. Look, if it was the best player award, I agree. It would go to one of those two. But I think because the Heisman is a quarterback award, it has to go to Cam.
yeah, he's got a cool celebration.
Best player award.
Yeah, it is. It's all semantics at this point because I agree it should be the best player award. That's what the Heisman's supposed to be. But in this day and age, it's a quarterback award. If you're a running back, you have to do some crazy stuff.
And he's doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, but
doing some crazy stuff.
As long as it's not Kyle's pick, I'm chilling.
Okay, as long.
You
Okay.
just picked the favorite.
I
so.
would pick Travis Hunter over Ashton Genty. I will say that.
I went
But
with the statistics.
now to a tough part of sports injuries. The NBA has been riddled with them in the early goings of the new season. Stars like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Zion Williamson, and Kevin Durant are all currently out with injuries, just to name a few. So which player's injury had the biggest impact on their team this season?
I mean, I think this one speaks for itself. Chet Holmgren, I mean, he's out for 8 to 12 weeks. The Thunder were 8-1 atop of the Western Conference before the injury. They've gone 4-3 since. And let's talk about the big man position. I mean, thank God they picked up Isaiah Hartenstein in the offseason from the Knicks. Because if
Good
not,
player.
great player.
Good player.
Because if not, they'd have no backup center right now. I mean, they got Jason Williams, who's 6'5", listed as the backup center. At that point, I'm going on waivers. Thunder, pick me up, man. Because at 6'5", we're like practically right there. So, yeah, the Thunder are going to have to pick up a lot. They're running a ton of small ball rotations without him. And Chet, you know, he's a tall guy. He's like 7'2". So the risk of injury is high. I hope he comes back healthy. And this is definitely going to impact the Thunder's success this season, I think, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Chet. I'll mention Paolo. This is basically just a segment about my fantasy team because they're impacting me a lot. Paolo, kind of a different effect. Paolo having a great season before he went down. He was averaging 29, 8-5, having the best season of his career, his short career, but best season of his career.
Breakout season, for sure.
Yeah, he's already an all-star. But after he goes down against the Bulls, they lost 4 straight. Since then, they're 7-1 because of who? Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner has been a stud. He's dropped 3 30-point games since then, 3 more with 25+. Game winner against the Lakers last night in cold fashion. Franz Wagner's a stud. But I don't know if they can really keep this up. Might need Paolo to come back. Franz Wagner is a stud. Just got the note from HQ up there. But yeah, it's kind of had the different effect. It's been the breakout season for Wagner now with Paolo out. But I don't know if he comes back. I'm curious to see how that dynamic works with Paolo back in the fray in a few weeks.
Well, it should be an interesting way. Just injuries stink. And I really hope Chet specifically comes back. He's super fun to watch at over 7-footer doing the things he does.
Thanks, Pops.
But it is painful to say, but a beloved TV show which talks about basketball is going to have a new look next year. But don't worry, it's not the water cooler. It's time for the great debate, Roll the Bump. Inside the NBA has been a beloved show on TNT for as long as I can remember, with Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Ernie Johnson, and Kenny Smith filling out an all-star cast. But TNT has now lost the rights, with ESPN and ABC picking them up. Does it feel wrong to have ESPN to have the rights to what's iconically a TNT show?
A little bit. I don't know. I think my worry is, and I'll just say first too, there's no way Chuck and Shaq know how to pronounce Franz Wagner.
Wagner.
That's
a good point.
I think if it's like the same guys, like I'm gonna watch it. I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't. But I don't know if it's gonna be like as fun. Like there's something about their set, about them being on TNT, about the whole thing they've had going for the last 15 years that just like I don't know if it's gonna be the same on ESPN. And especially if it's not the same guys, it's absolutely not going to be the same. Well, yeah.
Well, there was talks that they were considering putting Stephen A. Smith.
I don't need that. I don't need that in the mix.
I don't
Just
know
stay
why.
over there,
I just
Steven.
don't know why ESPN keeps pushing that man. But I agree. It just feels weird to be on ESPN. Sure, they're going to put it on no matter what. But it's got to be those four guys. If it's even any different combination, can't be inside the NBA. Maybe it could be like outside the NBA because this is the NBA.
I need
at
to
this
see
point.
Shaq run through another Christmas tree, like before we switch anything up. And in your defense, Chuck did have a segment where he was sitting there trying to pronounce Jonas Valanciunas' name, and was just bought it, Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, European spelling is hard.
Yeah, no kidding, but
Yeah.
HQ's
Thanks.
got you.
Yeah.
HQ's got you.
Yeah, it's just one of the most iconic shows ever, and it's one of the few pregame shows in sports that I'm like tuning into from start to finish because it's like, man, I know I'm going to enjoy it. I know they're going to bring great content. I mean, look at that. In what shows will the hosts have a race to the wall? We're certainly not doing that.
We should.
Close finish here,
We
man.
Oh, yeah, well.
I'm beating Kyle every time, though, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Maybe with your dancing career, you're a little bit lighter on
Good
your
calls,
feet.
good calls. I'll take it. I'll take it on
Well,
this one.
we're going to stick with basketball for our final segment. It's time for final memos. Let's roll the bump. LeBron James announced this week that he will be taking a break from social media, so we wanted to pay homage to a man who has created some of the funniest social media moments in history. What's your favorite Bron moment?
As a noted LeBron hater, I have a lot. But my favorite might have come last week, November 10th, 7:53 a.m. He tweeted, "No, morning, Duke's not playing, didn't play the night before." He tweeted, "Just woke up from having a dream I was playing for Duke for Coach K inside Cameron Indoor Stadium. It was insane in there. I told Coach K it was an honor to suit up for him, and he said the same thing back to me. He's such a legend." Then it turned into a concert. Snoop and Dre were the performers, and they were doing the song in the next episode. The roof
Sorry, this is
inside
a real
damn near
tweet?
came off. Haha, then my alarm clock emoji went off, and I woke up.
I wouldn't put it past
What is
LeBron,
that?
man.
Who does
What was
that?
the timestamp?
7:53
Right,
a.m.
he woke up from his dream, instantly called
Who's
social
doing
media
that?
handlers.
Who needs to hear it?
Guys, I need to get this down on paper.
Well, we're all
Sounds
laughing
legit.
on the desk now.
I guess, but also what? Coach K told him it was an honor to coach him too. Coach K's never said that to one of his players. Never.
But it's LeBron. Like, maybe
It's crazy.
he's
crazy.
Just a kid from Akron.
Yeah, he's a washed king. Calls himself it all the time.
I think my favorite is when LeBron went to Europe and he got a trim from some barber, so he felt like he needed to post on handles just to let everybody know. So he goes, hashtag funny guy spoke no English, hashtag I told him he looked like George Bush, hashtag he said you look like LeBron James.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know. I can't control my favorite moment, I think, has to be, the classic meme where it's like he's in his pool, hand on his forehead, and it's just like, how is this the life I'm living right now? Like, well, it's because you're a great basketball player and have millions of dollars at your disposal. That's probably why.
He's just a kid from Akron, though.
Yeah, I don't think the NBA is going to be the same. Like, look, we're losing two iconic things inside the NBA. LeBron's social media.
It's a sad day for sports.
It is. I agree.
It's a sad day if you just like to laugh.
But that is all the time we have today for our entire crew. Hey, we'll keep them laughing. We'll keep them laughing. But for our entire cast and crew, I'm Thomas Johnson, and we will see you next time on The Water Cooler.